Good evening. This is Richard Williams. Glad to have you tonight. We're going to be looking tonight at Luke chapter 12, Lessons from a Bankrupt. First, like, share, subscribe, and comment. Luke 12, start with 22. And he said to his disciples, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. For life is more than food, and the body is more than clothing. Consider the ravens. They neither sow nor reap, and they have neither storehouses nor barns, and yet God feeds them. Of how much more value are you than the birds? Can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your span of life? If then you're not able to do so small a thing as that, why do you worry about the rest? Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not clothed like one of these. But if God so clothed the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown in the oven, how much more will he clothe you, you of little faith? And do you not keep striving for what you are to eat and what you are to drink, and do not keep worrying? For it is the nations of the world that strive after these things, and your Father knows that you need them. Instead, strive for his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. Do not be afraid, little flock, for it's your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give alms. Make purchases for yourself that do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Think about what Jesus is talking about, the value of life here. And he's thinking about life, let's face it, the problem we have with life is sometimes our perspective. Instead of looking at it from God's perspective, we look at it from our perspective, from the world's perspective. And that's where a lot of the trouble comes with, because people are never seemingly satisfied. They're always going after materialistic things more and more and more. And that always leaves you empty inside. And you think about the Greek word here for, Jesus used for worry. It said, worry basically means do not continue to be anxious. Stop being anxious. A lot of people are anxious. They're worried about how much I'm going to get. I got to get more. And it's all about trying to gather up more material. And what they don't realize is that Christ is trying to tell you, if you want to have peace of heart, peace in life, don't strive for those things. That's not what you're looking at, because life truly consists in dependency and reliance upon God. Now look at the ravens. He said that, the New Testament, this is the first time the word ravens used in the New Testament. And you think about it in the Old Testament, we use a lot. But here's what it says about the ravens. They are not farmers. They don't plant crops. They are dependent on God. They have nowhere to store crops. You think about it. They don't store crops for the future. Remember, the Proverbs talks about the ant. He said, study the ant. All summer they work and they store up for the winter. You think about that. In this case, you have to realize, think about the case of the rich fool, the guy who had such a big crop come in, and he said, "So you've got so much. Well, tear down my barns and build bigger ones." And yet God said, "Tonight your soul is required of you." I'm going to tell you something. Jesus said, you can worry all you want to, and it will not add 1 hour to your life. But you live a life of worry, and I'm going to tell you something. It might take time away from your life, because worry is the worst thing you can do for yourself. So if you can't add anything by worrying, why worry? Why be so anxious about things that you have no control over? That's the most important thing. And you think about that guy, he's going to pull down his barns. Here's the thing about the ravens. Now, the ravens, they were not conscious of their poverty. Ignorance is bliss. They depended every day for God to give them their food. The rich fool, he had plenty. Go build bigger barns. He was not conscious of his spiritual bankruptcy. The ravens were a lot smarter, weren't they? I'm going to tell you something. Jesus is telling us dependency upon God. And he goes in, he said, look at the lilies. The word consider there means to notice, observe carefully, reflect upon, to contemplate. when you think about looking at nature, you're looking at God's creation, and Jesus picked out flowers. One translation said wildflowers. These aren't plants that your mom and dad grow. These are wildflowers. Years ago, I had a friend from Canada that sent us a picture of a field out in, this was New Brunswick, Providence. It was in spring. I mean, it was a beautiful picture, colored picture, all the flowers. It was just breathtaking. God and God alone could do something that beautiful. Just like also, you look at a picture of a beautiful fall setting up north or in some other country where they have a lot of forest and that, and the leaves are so vibrant colors. You look at it and you think, that's one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen. God did that. And Jesus said, consider the lilies. Think about it. God takes care of them. God is the one who looks after them. And he talks about you of little faith. Little faith, and basically it's a one word in the Greek, and it basically means little trust or little faith or poverty of faith. And when you think about what Jesus is saying, he said, where are you in your life? Are you in that position where you're so caught up with anxiety that you're in a poverty of faith? Now, the thing we need to stop doing is striving about things. Keep going. God doesn't want us to stop living. Don't misunderstand me. You got to live. But here's the thing about it. You got to stop doubting and stop living the way you've been living like the world, and realize that faith is a very powerful thing that allows us to walk with God and have that walk with God. And you don't let the things of the world fill your heart. Worry is a thing that will always pull you down. Faith and worry can never dwell in the same heart together. You got to have faith. Worry will always pull you down and pull you away from God. And what's more important? We get so wrapped up with eating this, with what I'm wearing, am I wearing the nicest clothes? What's more important? What you're wearing right now or eternity? Think about it. Let me ask you, what's more important? What you're wearing now, what you're eating, what you're driving, or eternity? That's the thing about it. He said basically we're not to have an anxious mind. In the Greek, it paints a picture of someone hovering between hope and fear and restlessness and anxiety. Talking about people who are living in a poverty of faith because they're poor, because they're not dependent on God. And Jesus talks about seek first the kingdom of God. When you're seeking first the kingdom of God, you're seeking first the rule of God. You're putting God first. You're seeking that is eternal. That's more important. Seeking first God's kingdom. Because Jesus said where your heart is, that's where your treasure is. If your heart's in the kingdom of God, then that is where your treasure is going to be. Corrie ten Boom told about her father when the Nazis first invaded Holland. And you got to understand, they were anybody disabilities, anybody handicapped, they were taking them up. They were exterminating them. Jews were being picked up. And her father, when people would come in so anxious, he was a watchmaker, he'd pray with them. And just, because he's a man of faith. And of course, her whole family, they were smuggling Jews out of Holland, trying to get them to England, to get them away from the Nazis. And they got caught. And he was an older man. And the night they were loading all their family up, this colonel looked at him and he said, Ten Boom, you're an old man. If you give me your word, you will never help anyone again and help the Jews. He said, I'll let you die in your bed. Her father said, if you let me go back to my house tonight, if someone knocks on my door tomorrow for help, I will open my door and let them in. He died in a labor camp. Most people might have said he lost everything, but my friends, he was rich in faith. The ones who made his life so miserable at the end were the ones who were poverty of faith. Where's your heart? Is it in bankruptcy, or are you living rich in faith in his kingdom? This is Brother Richard saying, God bless you. Good evening.